can you hear me?
Here. Are you alright?
He's sick. He's really sick.
Sir, you're gonna have to...
The film starts in Los Angeles, where Jenny and Paula, two flight attendants, are on their way to LAX for a flight to Nashville. They arrive and step inside the airplane, checking each other's appearances to ensure they look presentable. A pilot, looking pale and sickly, emerges from the cockpit and asks for a cup of coffee. He explains that he has a head cold and suspects he caught it from his dog, as there is a virus spreading among pets in his neighborhood. Jenny is assigned to assist the passengers, who will board first. At the gate, she meets George, who frequently flies coast to coast to visit his parents. George dismisses Jenny's attempts at kindness and control. On board, we meet the rest of the crew and passengers: Captain Forrest, co-pilot Wilson, the one from earlier, an elderly couple, Bev and Sylvester, who has Parkinson's and is unable to speak or move, Louise, another elderly woman with her cat, Henry, a teacher who has brought hamsters, Neil and Susan, a germaphobe couple expecting a baby, Shyla, an army medic, another couple, Vorst and Nika, both foreign with heavily accented English, Preston, a businessman, and Ralph, a heavyset golf player. Captain Forrest and co-pilot Wilson settle inside the cockpit. Wilson keeps sneezing, prompting Forrest to ask if he is feeling all right. The regular passengers begin boarding the aircraft. Ralph then makes a few jokes about his size before wedging himself into the tight seat. Soon after, Henry attempts to load the hamster cage into the baggage compartment, but it doesn't fit. Ralph tries to assist, but the hamster ends up biting his finger. Jenny finally steps in and says the cage needs to be stored elsewhere since it won't fit. When she meets Paula again at the back of the plane, Paula comments that Henry is cute and that he was practically flirting the hormones out of Jenny. Jenny laughs hysterically. As the plane prepares for takeoff, the passengers fasten their seatbelts. The plane is noticeably half empty because a large tour group had canceled. Both Paula and Jenny also buckle into their assigned seats. Once the plane is stable in the air, the passengers can unfasten their seatbelts. Paula and Jenny stand up to start moving around the plane. Jenny notices Ralph looking unwell. He requests a cup of water, so Jenny heads to the back and asks Paula to assist him. Paula delivers the drink, and upon returning, informs Jenny that Ralph seems better. Jenny then approaches the teacher, who is engrossed in watching the news. Apparently, a contagious outbreak has been identified in an apartment building in LA, resulting in a quarantine. Interestingly, this is the same apartment building featured in the initial film. The teacher remarks that it's fortunate their plane is heading away from the city. As the flight progresses, Ralph's condition suddenly deteriorates quickly. He demands that the plane land as his mouth begins to foam, and he vomits on Jenny before running in a rage towards the cockpit. Preston, Henry, George, and Paula manage to knock Ralph out and restrain him with plastic cuffs, while Wilson locks the cockpit door following terrorism protocol. The plane is directed to land at Las Vegas Airport, but communication with the tower is cut off as they land. Ralph reawakens and severely injures Paula by biting her nose. Shyla uses the plane's emergency first aid kit to administer an anesthetic, but Paula is losing a lot of blood and needs immediate medical attention. Frustrated with the lack of communication, Captain Forrest taxis the plane to a gate while the passengers attempt to trap Ralph in the bathroom. Ed, a baggage handler at the terminal, sees the plane land and opens a gate so they can disembark. However, they find that all the doors into the terminal are locked. Ed leads them to an employee entrance. Forrest and Wilson hold the plane's bathroom door shut while everyone else, except for Bev and Sylvester, escapes into the staging room, a giant warehouse of loading docks and various equipment to move bags. Here they are first notified that they are being quarantined. With Paula's condition worsening, Shyla tells Jenny she has a medical kit in her luggage, and Jenny enlists Ed's help to save her friend. The power in the staging room goes out as Preston, Henry, Jenny, Ed, and Niall move back to the plane to find that Wilson and Forrest are gone and the bathroom is filled with blood. Sylvester is still in his seat, but his wife is missing. He uses his eyes to direct the group's attention to a pair of chewed-through plastic cuffs on the floor. Ed finds a trap door from the cabin area of the plane into the hold. Jenny searches for Shyla's medical kit while Niall grabs a gun from his suitcase and Preston stays with Sylvester above. Niall is bitten by a rodent, which he says looked like a rat. Jenny reasons it must have been a hamster. Before climbing back out of the hold, Jenny sees Preston's laptop spattered with blood. She turns to find Forrest, mouth foaming and eyes red. He attacks her, forcing Neil to shoot him in the back. Niall is splattered with blood, but everyone escapes without getting bitten. The group moves out of the hold into the plane aisle, where they find Sylvester on the ground, thrown from his wheelchair, and Preston bitten on the back of the neck. They regroup and are attacked by the infected Bev, whom they lock in the walkway. When they meet the rest of the group, they realize the infection is likely spread by bites, causing a super rabies virus that turns people into a rabid type of zombie, or were-rats. Sylvester tries to alert the group to a rat lurking above him, but they fail to hear him. The rat attacks him, but George notices it perched on his head seconds later and knocks it off, drawing everyone's attention. They proceed to lock Sylvester and Paula up, fearing they are infected. George accuses Henry of bringing rats onto the plane, not hamsters, pointing out that he saw long tails peeking out from the carrier. Henry denies this, saying it's illegal to bring lab rats onto a plane and that he would have been caught by security. Jenny talks to Henry, who insists George is confused. They are attacked by the infected Ralph again. Jenny's screams attract the group's attention, and they strangle Ralph with a rubber hose. A team of 4 CBDT officers arrive, heavily armed. They direct the group to release Sylvester and Paula from their makeshift cells and administer protocol to them, a pressurized injection to the neck. They then demand that the others step forward to receive it as well. They are all hesitant as the CBDT officers refuse to explain what's happening. Louise finally steps forward. While they attempt to administer the injection, her cat, which had eaten Ralph's vomit earlier, bites her neck. The team fires and misses several times, and Sylvester jumps in and bites one of the officials. After killing him, the 3 other officials try to flee but find themselves locked in. They shoot out the locks and run, and along with Forrest, who attempts to escape with them, are apparently shot to death by the surrounding military personnel. Ed drags a wounded surviving officer inside, and the group flees the infected, now including Neil, from the rat bite he received earlier. Neil grabs Susan as she attempts to escape with the others. They take shelter in a large catering truck. The group interrogates the CBDT officer. The officer tells them about the quarantine building in LA, from the first Quarantine movie, and a possible outbreak. Before giving any real answers, he shoots himself. Wilson attempts to attack the group from an opening in the top of the trailer, while Ed directs George to activate a lift that crushes Wilson between the trailer and a beam above it. They exit the truck and flee, but Henry turns back alone without telling anyone where he's going. Ed leads the remainder of the group to a blueprint office to try to find an old drainage tunnel that doesn't appear on the new blueprints. While fleeing, Nika is dragged away, and moments later, Paula attacks the rest of them. Jenny reconciles with killing her friend and attacks Paula with a metal bar. The infected Paula falls off the catwalk and dies. The surviving group, now consisting of Jenny, George, Ed, and Shyla, reaches the airport engineer's office and starts looking for the blueprints detailing the tunnel's location. George snoops into Henry's briefcase, discovering alarming documents in a case containing a vial and a syringe. The infected Niall and Susan arrive and attack, but Henry saves the group by shooting the 2 to death with Niall's gun. It's discovered he was bitten, but George accuses Henry and pulls out the vial. Henry admits to having started it all, claiming he's one of 2 good guys. He's doing something. Otherwise, the population will just keep growing and growing while the planet is dying. Henry is part of a doomsday cult aiming to end the world through a weaponized rabies virus. He threatens to kill Jenny if George doesn't hand over the antidote. Ed promptly attacks him to try getting the gun away, and Henry shoots him dead. The others are immediately scared into compliance. While administering the antidote, Henry admits he has friends to the cause helping him, who assisted in getting the rats and antidote through security and informed him his lab in LA was compromised. After administering the antidote to himself through an injection into his brain via his eye socket, he leaves, forcing George to come with him, hitting Jenny with the gun when she tries to stop him. Shyla offers to go ahead as Jenny is overwhelmed. While separated, Jenny is attacked by the infected Preston. After a close chase, she kills him by bashing his head with a piece of machinery. She then gets a second wind and continues searching for George. Shyla shows up, bitten, but with one of the CBDT's thermal night vision camera goggles, which make it easier to see the infected in the dark. She gives it to Jenny, telling her to rescue George and kill that rat. At this time, there are only 4 infected besides Shyla. Shyla uses herself as a distraction to allow Jenny to escape and find George. She is seen being attacked by all 4 infected. Jenny finds George abandoned and crying near the drainage tunnel. Henry's antidote has failed and he is now infected. George, unable to see in the dark, begs Jenny to stay out of the tunnel, but she comes down anyway and is attacked by Henry. She drops the goggles, and George puts them on, instantly seeing the gun on the ground. He grabs it and shoots Henry. He then hands the goggles back to Jenny, who sees that Henry is incapacitated but still alive. She repeatedly strikes Henry's head with a metal bar, killing him. Jenny and George, now the last survivors, escape along a baggage tunnel as the terminal begins to burn down. When they are in the tunnel, George looks at Jenny and sees she has been bitten. She begs George to leave her behind. George refuses to go without her, and Jenny reluctantly agrees to follow. At the end of the tunnel, George squeezes through the bars to escape. George waits for Jenny and calls out to her. However, a savage and infected Jenny attacks George and grabs onto his hoodie, but George escapes by taking it off and leaving it behind. George reluctantly leaves the now infected Jenny trapped with the rest of the infected. He drops the goggles and is seen walking away from the airport fence, free and clearly not infected but alone. After George leaves, the scene shifts to the point of view of the goggles, showing Louise's cat. The cat shakes off what appears to be part of the virus, letting it splatter onto the lens before heading into the city of Las Vegas.